What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Rob again. It's been a while since I made a video. I think I had this idea to make this video a couple weeks ago. But I want to speak on vulnerability. And the reason I want to speak on vulnerability because it's actually one of the most powerful positions you can be in as an individual. Spiritually, it's hard to go through being vulnerable and being exposed especially when you're a very protected and guarded person. But that's all really an illusion when it comes down to it. It's just the illusion of walls that you've put up. And I'm making this video right now actually in a very interesting state because I actually am very vulnerable right now. And that's what gave me the idea to go ahead and do this movie today or now. It's because I am in a very vulnerable state as we speak. So what better time to speak about vulnerability in a time where you're feeling vulnerable? So maybe the reason why I feel vulnerable is, I guess it's typical things like typical relationship issues and disagreements. And when you have these disagreements or these issues, your character and things like that are called into question. Things that you thought were true. The person may say something that is to the contrary out of anger. And so this will make you feel very vulnerable because what you thought was once true is now being challenged. So now you have a level of vulnerability, that you once didn't share, you haven't shared in a while. Maybe you kind of been lulled to sleep and not realize that you still had this vulnerable spot. You know what I'm saying? That this person has exploited with their words. Now you are questioning yourself based on what this other person has said. So the teaching in vulnerability is really to learn to observe yourself and really to become more aware of how you feel when people are saying certain things, and then in conjunction with your truth. That's the vulnerable part. What you believe to be true now that's being challenged. Now you feel naked. That kind of makes me think about Adam and Eve in the Bible when they found out that they were naked. Like, we look at it from a very literal standpoint, them being naked, and then they realize that now they feel ashamed. And that's kind of vulnerability that I speak about. It's kind of believing something that you thought was true ends up not being, or a reality that you thought was cool ended up not being cool. But it doesn't mean it's not truth though. And that's where I feel like if we can come into that grounding of truth, then the vulnerable feeling or the negative aspect of feeling vulnerable, meaning exposed, well, can be quickly, it can quickly fade away if you know how to stand or ground yourself in truth. I think the biggest, excuse me, I got distracted a little bit. I think the biggest thing is always catering truth and understanding truth. But, truth is a very, very broad subject and a very, very big word that has a lot of dimensions to it. And excuse me if I'm trying to get this little one to do the right thing. So I'm a little bit distracted, but nonetheless, so in the sense of trying to find stability or grounding in truth or in a vulnerable time, it takes a level of meditation, but you also got to go through it. You got to get exposed. You know what I'm saying? You got to go through it and feel it and be okay with it, and also have your proper things in place that bring that ground you. If you're not spiritually grounded yourself, then you may have to talk to somebody. You may have to seek some sort of counseling. I got some great counseling today. A friend of mine, she was telling me how I'm basically you're experiencing a death. Essentially, you're experiencing a spiritual death when you go through vulnerability, and how you have to be okay with that spiritual death because it's necessary for your development and growth on this spiritual journey we're on. That's the most important part of understanding vulnerability. Sometimes you're exposed, so you don't have to keep living that lie. So once you're exposed, and you can cater, you can forgive yourself for living a lie, but then you can also put the new system in place that's going to help you um, be more whole and never really experience that vulnerability again, because of the fact that you were able to basically, when you're basically being experienced a vulnerability, you're basically being shown that there's a gap or a hole in your aura or in your life that you need to learn how to properly mend, because what you did was you mended it with like duct tape, or you mended it with like a band-aid, and you didn't ever stop the bleeding. So it's still bleeding, now it's still draining your energy, but all you do is keep putting band-aids over, and you don't never stop the bleeding. And that's how I look at being vulnerable and being in vulnerable places. You can look at it from positive or a negative standpoint, but I think you should cater from both poles. You should look at it both positive and negative chargely. You see what I'm saying? You need to be able to see the good in being vulnerable. You need to be able to see the negative in being the bad, or the so-called bad being vulnerable. You see what I'm saying? Like, you don't always be exposed, so then you're gonna be exposed to things that may hurt you. But being exposed for like a short opening and closing of a second, or a moment, I should say, is actually very good for you, because it lets you see yourself outside of yourself, and then you can make proper adjustments and changes in your life that are going to help your life be a lot easier. Because sometimes the things that we go through in life, some of the habitual natures we put in place as a defense. So the whole purpose was as a defense mechanism to what's the word I'm looking for? Is a defense mechanism to keep us from being vulnerable. So what we put these things in place to protect us from scary situations, or situations we're not really ready to address yet. We may not have the maturity or the wisdom to deal with it yet. So we put this thing in place, these thought processes, these thought patterns in place to shield us from this vulnerable growth process that we need to go through. And I'll create an example for that. So say you need to go to the gym and you need to work out to get better. Like you need to do this to better the quality of your life, right? You got to do it, right? But you fall susceptible to things that hold you back from that. Thoughts that hold you back from that. So what I mean by that is you might say, all right, you better go to the gym. Next thing you know, you might get something like a girl, or even yourself might say something to you like, well, maybe you don't feel like it. I'm tired, man. My shoulder kind of hurt a little bit. Maybe I should lay off today. You see, these little things that may distract you from it. Or someone might call and be like, yo, I need you to go do this for me in like an hour or so. And so that may interfere with your gym time or whatever the case may be. But understand there's things set up, and because all is self, if you set this thing up in your mind, understand there's something on the outside that's going to come and make sure what you just put up here it plays out. You see what I'm saying? Because you put it there first. You put it in your mind. What I say that something is that block that keeps you from growing, that block that keeps you going from the gym. You see what I'm saying? And whatever that external comes, it's just going to be there we go, to agree with the block. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, you might know you need to go to the gym, but you got that little bit of doubt inside your heart. You got that little bit of doubt inside you, or you got that little just bit of, I don't want to go inside you. Understand there's going to be something that comes outside that appears outside of you to agree with that feeling, to agree with that, so you don't go do it because you set it up that way. And that's why I'm talking about being vulnerable. If you point that out, if you can point that out in whatever way you need to point it out to know that you're doing it to yourself, then you can begin to get over it. But you have to check yourself, and that's the part that hurts. That's the part that kind of bothers you sometimes, that the fact that you got to do this self-check, or somebody has to come outside of you and check you and let you know that, hey, this ain't right. You gotta tighten up on this. And that's the biggest thing in the world. People hate being accountable. They hate it. You know what I'm saying? They hate everything about accountability, because accountability says, I'm responsible for this, and I'm responsible for this being bad. I'm also responsible for fixing it. You see what I'm saying? Or I'm responsible for this being good, and I'm also responsible for maintaining this goodness. You see what I'm saying? So that's accountability. It's not always about the, so-called bad things in life, but it is about owning up to the things that you may have done and owning up to the things that you have caused and doing something about it. And a lot of times doing that something about it is the part called being vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable in order to do something about it, to even know that you need to do something about it. Probably make a part 2 to being vulnerable, but this is a good start, and I think it's a good subject for us to all to be very conscientious of, and also to help each other with. You know what I'm saying? So this is your boy Rob signing off. Thank y'all, anybody who listens. I hope anybody who sees to hear this can get something good from this. Okay? Peace and love, family.